Welcome to a short preview of this Screencasts Online video tutorial.
In this episode, we'll be taking a look at Drafts for iOS. Drafts is an interesting application that is hard to define, but in a nutshell, it's the place where text starts on your iOS devices. Now, why does that matter? Well, iOS isn't great for manipulating text between different applications. So Drafts aims to be the starting place for text on your iOS devices. On the application website, it says that Drafts lets you turn text into action. It's a quick notebook, handy editor, and a writing automation tool all in one. That's a pretty fair and accurate description in my opinion. You're not going to do long-form writing in Drafts, but it's a great place to capture things when you think of them. So in this episode, we're going to show you the major benefits of starting text in Drafts and what you can do with it once it's there. Now, Drafts for iOS is a universal app, which means you can run it on your iPhone and your iPad. The interface is laid out exactly the same on both devices. The iPad just gives you a bigger canvas. But because a major benefit of Drafts is that it allows you to quickly capture text, and the iPhone is typically the device that you will have with you at any moment, we're going to be using the iPhone version for the actual screencast to mimic real-world usage. Before we begin though, I want to ask you to give Drafts a fair shake. It's easy to write it off as an application you don't really need, and I did this for quite a while myself. But I can tell you from my experience that Drafts has evolved into one of the most used applications on my iPhone. The plain text formatting offers several advantages over something like Apple Notes, but if you're like me, you won't realize just how much you get annoyed by trying to manipulate text on iOS until you really start using an application like Drafts for a little while. To get started with Drafts, you first need to download it from the iOS App Store. Drafts is free to download, but there is a pro version which offers several additional, more advanced features. We're going to dig into a lot of these, but out of the box, Drafts can do quite a bit. You can see what's available with the pro version of Drafts at the Drafts website. Basically, what it gives you is the ability to create and edit actions, which we'll take a look at in a little bit, the ability to customize the themes and icons, which we're going to show you how to do. It gives you workspaces, which allow you to store your tag, query, and sort settings. And it gives you enhanced URL automation by giving you access to some very powerful URL schemes, which is honestly a bit beyond the scope of this tutorial and less important with this version of Drafts in my opinion, because Drafts version 5 gives you the ability to customize actions without having to know all of the X callback URL schemes. So a lot of the things that you needed to hard code previously by using these URL schemes are now possible with visual tools built into Drafts or other applications that integrate with Drafts like Workflow. I'll try to call out the pro features as we go throughout this tutorial. But now let's go over to our iOS device and take a look at the Drafts interface and how it works.
That's just a quick preview of one of this week's Apple-related tutorials from Screencasts Online. Screencasts Online is your premium source of Apple-related video tutorials. All of our members get access to brand new, up-to-date tutorials each week, as well as unlimited access to our entire video archive full of Mac and iOS-related tutorials. You can stream and download all of our videos on your Mac, iPad and iPhone, and even your Apple TV using the members-only Screencasts Online Apple TV app. Membership also includes a complimentary subscription to the digital Screencasts Online monthly magazine, published each month and packed with videos, articles, reviews, as well as hints and tips covering all aspects of the Mac, iPad, iPhone, and all of the other fantastic Apple products. So, if you're ready to start getting the most out of your Apple devices, visit screencastsonline.com today and become a Screencasts Online member.